You are listening to Small Business Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives small business owners the straight talk on productivity, time management, business systems, leading your teams, strategic decision-making, and mindset. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the productivity specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. Today is episode 384, the Mid-Year Goals Reset, how to review, refocus, and finish strong. If you're a small business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. Are you still working towards the same goals you set in January, even though your business, your market, and maybe even your vision have completely changed? Or worse, have you been so buried in the day-to-day that you haven't looked at your goals since you wrote them down 6 months ago? Stick around because in today's episode, I'm sharing exactly how to do a mid-year goals reset that will help you finish your year stronger than you ever imagined, without the guilt, without the overwhelm, and with a clear action plan for the next 6 months. Before we jump in, though, I want to invite you to take my next level business owner quiz. Take 3 minutes to find out what is most holding you back from taking your business to the next level and get a curated playlist of specific episodes that address those challenges. And in those episodes, you will get actionable strategies you can implement immediately to get results in your business. So head on over to amberdelagarza.com/quiz. And now let's get to the straight talk. We're halfway through the year, 6 months down and 6 months to go. And if you're like most business owners, the goals you set back in January, they might feel like they were written by a completely different person. Maybe you've been crushing it and need to level up your targets. Maybe you've been so buried in the day-to-day that you haven't even thought about those goals since February. Or maybe, and this is more common than you think, you're somewhere in between, making progress but not quite sure if it's the right progress. Here's what I know. The business owners who take time to pause, review, and reset mid-year are the ones who finish December with celebration instead of regret. And that is exactly what we're going to do together today. I'm going to walk you through why mid-year check-ins are a game changer, share my insights feedback loop framework for taking honest inventory, show you how to reset without the guilt so that you can finish the year strong. This isn't about beating yourself up for what hasn't happened. It's about giving yourself the gift of clarity and momentum for the rest of the year. Ready? Let's dive in. Let's be honest about what happens to most business owners' goals by mid-year. Maybe you're in one of these camps. Perhaps you got distracted by shiny objects and unexpected opportunities. Or you can't see the clear path to your goals anymore. What seemed so obvious in January now feels complicated and even impossible. Or maybe you're just winging it, hoping momentum alone will carry you through the year. Perhaps you've completely forgotten about those goals because life and business got in the way, and reviewing them was never built into your regular routine. And then, of course, it could be that you're thinking, wait, hold on, we're supposed to do a mid-year check-in? You've had your head down working hard, but no one's ever told you that successful business owners pause mid-year to review, reset, and refocus. Here's what happens when you don't check in with your goals. For some, winging it means that you're not planning your days or weeks any longer, and you're certainly not planning them in alignment with what your goals are. Perhaps you're stuck putting out fires, working in your business instead of on it. Every day feels reactive instead of proactive. Or perhaps you're still feeling like you need to hustle hard, but you've lost the connection to why you're doing what you're doing. You're so busy, but busy doing what? And is it actually moving you towards achieving your goals? And if you didn't even know what a mid-year check-in was, you might be working incredibly hard, but in the wrong direction. Like driving fast, but on the wrong highway. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. Amber, I'm too busy running my business to stop and review goals. But here's the straight talk. If you're not actively working towards achieving your business goals, you haven't built a business. You've just created a job where you're an employee on a hamster wheel. And you're just too busy working in the business to work on the business. Now, why do most business owners skip this crucial step? Honestly, most don't even think about it. Unlike January, when everyone's talking about goal setting, come June, July, crickets. The energy and enthusiasm around goals has completely faded. No one's posting about mid-year reviews on social media. Your business friends aren't asking you about your progress or what you have planned for the year. But here's what skipping a mid-year check-in is costing you. You never get back on track if you've veered off course. You miss the chance to celebrate wins you didn't even realize you had. You can't revise your strategy based on what's actually happening in your business right now. And you end the year wondering, where did all the time go? But what happens when you do make time for a mid-year check-in? I'm glad you asked. This is where the magic happens. For my clients who commit to this practice, a mid-year check-in lets them review, reset, and refocus. They get clarity on exactly what to focus on for the rest of the year, and they can align their schedules accordingly. That clarity transforms into momentum to finish the year strong. Some discover they're actually further along than they thought. They just needed to pause and see it, and actually review and understand that they have accomplished far more than their brain is tricking them into believing. Others realize that they need to pivot, and they're grateful that they caught it in June instead of December. And some of my clients, they reconnect to their why and find renewed energy for the second half of the year. In fact, the business owners who attended my VIP business planning event last November are taking this so seriously that they asked me to create a mid-year retreat. And so I did this episode in preparation of that event that we're doing very soon in Bend, Oregon. And it's not because I required it, but it's because they requested it. When they left the last event, the VIP planning event in Las Vegas, they understood the power of pausing to review, reset, and refocus with accountability and structure in place. So, let me ask you this. Where will you be on December 31st if you do not pause now to check in on your goals? Will you be wondering where the year went, how it flew by, how you're back at the beginning of the year again? Or will you be celebrating because you took the time in June to ensure you were on track? A mid-year check-in isn't about beating yourself up for what didn't happen. It's about giving yourself the gift of clarity and the opportunity to course correct while you still have 6 full months to make magic happen. Now that you understand why mid-year check-ins matter, let's talk about how to actually do one. I'm going to share one of the frameworks I use with my clients called the Insights Feedback Loop. This is just one of the tools in my toolbox, but it's powerful enough on its own to transform how you look at your goals and progress. Before we get started, I want you to hit pause and go pull those goals out. Because before we can assess your progress, you'll need to actually look at what your goals are. And I know, some of you might be thinking, Amber, I don't even remember where I wrote them down. And I get it. And maybe you didn't write them down. That is also okay. And you're still going to find probably a ton of value from today's episode because now's the time at the halfway mark to get yourself some goals. And this same tool is going to help you. So now go find them, whether they're in your journal, a planning document, maybe they're in your phone, on your notes, wherever you captured them in January, grab them. And if you're having a hard time finding them, that is telling you something pretty important right there too, because these goals should be front and center. They should be easy to access and that you're looking at them frequently. Now that you've found those goals, I want you to take a few minutes and review what you actually committed to for this year. This is really important, this part. I want you to read them without judgment. Just get reacquainted with what your goals were at the beginning of the year. In fact, sometimes we bury these goals and we do not look at them frequently enough because we don't like that feeling that we feel when we're judging ourselves, that internal dialogue. And I'm giving you permission to just objectively look at them and not judge yourself. Now, let's apply the insights feedback loop to each of those goals. The framework is incredibly simple. It's so simple that it's 3 simple questions that will give you immediate clarity on your goals. Here are the 3 questions. 1, what is working? 2, what is not working? 3, what could work? That's it. 3 simple questions, right? But here's where most business owners get it wrong. They actually dismiss this framework, this feedback loop, because it feels so simple. And my motto is, let it be simple. If it works and it can be impactful, life and business is complicated enough. So let it be simple. Here's where I'm going to tell you to start. And you may have asked these questions, maybe not all 3 questions, and particularly what I find is that most business owners don't ask it in the right order. So I want you to start with the first question. What is working? Yes, that's where I want you to start. And I want you to start because you really need to start on a positive path. You need to understand that there's a lot of opportunity and leverage in identifying what's already working. We as people, we as business owners are so quick to want to identify the next thing that could work, the next shiny object, the next project, the next thing that you see someone else doing is surely going to be the thing that changes your business. And it's so easy for our brains to default into, what is not working? Like seriously, give me a list. How long can I write the list? What's not working? The magic in this feedback loop is starting with what is working. When you identify what's working, there's several powerful things that are happening. 1, you get to celebrate wins that you may have overlooked. You get to recommit to continuing the things that are actually moving the needle forward. And then you can identify opportunities to double down, to do more of what's already working to get even better results. After you've identified what is working, I want you to move to question number 2. And I want you to be incredibly honest with yourself about what's not working. Now, I know this part can feel a little bit uncomfortable, but here's how I coach my clients through it. I want you to think of this as just data. This isn't a list of beating yourself up and just seeing things negatively. It's you're collecting data so that you can do something about it. Knowing what's not working is just as valuable as knowing what is working. Think about it. Continuing to do the same thing in the same way when they're not producing results, that is a straight path to failure, frustration, lost time, lost money, and it sabotages your ability to achieve your goals. When you identify what's not working, you have options. This puts you back in the driver's seat. You can decide to redirect your attention and time to things that do work. Take that strategy and move it into your what could work list to experiment with tweaks to make it work. And you could consider also if the reason it's not working is because you're lacking some sort of resource like time, money, people, skill set, mindset, or technology that can actually make the thing that's not working work. But if you don't question things in your business, you're going to find that there's a lot of things not working, and unquestioned, they go unchanged. So this isn't about beating yourself up. It's about being strategic with your resources. Next, and lastly, is the third question in this feedback loop. I want you to explore what could work. The last question is not about creating a wish list. It's about identifying strategies that could work. Because let's be honest, in business, there are no guarantees. You can see a strategy work for someone else and you try it and it does not work for your business. You could see a strategy work for a different business owner, a different industry, someone that has different resources. The key here is to understand that because there's no guarantees, this is about you identifying things that could possibly work, but I don't want you to think about it as a wish list. I want you to think about it as strategically listing things that have possible solutions that you can experiment with. Maybe it's like taking something from your do not work list, like I mentioned before, and approaching it differently. Perhaps it's a completely new strategy that you have been thinking about, considering, or actually did see somebody do that worked for them. The key is to think in terms of experiments and not commitments. This, I've said many times, if you're a longtime listener, this was a really foundational mindset that had so many ripples in my business when I started seeing things through the lens of an experiment, where I wasn't attached to the outcome, and I really saw this as something I could get excited about. And it to me, experiment means, you're collecting data. The outcome of the experiment is not my identity. It doesn't mean I did good or I did bad. It doesn't mean my business is good or business is bad. It's truly about collecting data. And once I was able to start thinking of things that way, I actually gave myself so much more permission to try things and fail often and get that feedback and make tweaks. And that is what I want you to think about here when you're thinking about what could work. Because another thing that comes up often with my coaching clients that I see is that if we're not looking at what could work through an experiment, our brain sometimes automatically shuts off and says, oh, I can't do that. I don't have those resources. I don't have that skill set. I don't have the bandwidth to do that. Like your mind is literally racing and literally putting a limit on what's possible. And I don't want that. By really just looking at the lens of this is an experiment, what is possible, gives us permission to push through those limiting beliefs and the things that are popping up on why we would never actually get some of this stuff on the list. All right, so how to actually do this reality check? Here's my recommendation. I want you to block out dedicated time. This isn't something that you'll do while you're multitasking or in the car or driving or wherever you're listening to this episode. So I really want you to block out time and give yourself at least an hour to really dig in. And you can do this alone, or you can even do it with your team. Perhaps your team has incredible feedback on what's working, what's not working, and what could work. Doing this solo, you get honest self-reflection without any outside influence. But doing it with your team, you could gain perspectives that you might miss and create the buy-in for those changes from your team. I see both work. You can even also do a hybrid. You can do some of your goals solo, and maybe you're doing some of your feedback loop goals with the team. And I just want to finish this section of the podcast recapping because it's so incredibly important, is you are going to do it in this order. What is working to build the momentum and positive energy? And then you're going to ask what is not working. And with that positive foundation, like of thinking about, well, what's not working? Like the more I identify is not working, the more opportunity I have to make it work. And then lastly is what could work. And so I want you to really think about, through the lens of the goal that you're doing this feedback loop on, is what are the possibilities to get there by the end of the year? And you're going to apply these to your own specific goals. And maybe you have 5 goals, maybe you have 2 goals, maybe you have a long list of goals. But I want you to apply this feedback loop to those specific goals. And if you don't have goals, or perhaps you want to apply this to your business in a very structured way, it's the same way that we move through all the business areas in my VIP business planning event that I'll share more about, but we're also going to be doing it very thorough through all areas of the business at this mid-year check-in with my clients. So if you want to do it over your goals, that's what today's episode's about. But what you could also do is apply the insight feedback loop to these areas of your business: marketing and visibility, sales, servicing your clients, operations, leadership and team. You can also apply this to your schedule. So if you're really working on wanting to refine your schedule, making sure you're investing your highest value resource, which is time, maybe you're working on creating more work-life balance, apply this insight feedback loop to your actual schedule. And or putting your personal, like you could put personal in the middle of this. What are your personal goals? Or maybe this is where your work-life balance goals are, is under the personal area. And then lastly is we have an other, because I do have these areas identified, but we all have different areas of our business. And so you could just generally put anything in the circle of this loop of asking these 3 questions. So what I would recommend is, based on today's episode and your own, bandwidth right now, is you will get great results if you just pick 1 or 2 of these areas that you have specific goals around and run them through this insights feedback loop 3 questions. And this focused approach gives you the actionable insights instead of overwhelming you with trying to fix everything at once. There is no benefit in using a strategy or reviewing every aspect of your business and leaving feeling overwhelmed. I would rather you leave using a strategy with a few very actionable steps that have a big impact in your business. And as I said, we are going to be spending several hours doing this over our weekend retreat in Bend, Oregon. And we do this in a way where we break it down section by section, and then we share with the group, in each of the areas and each of the 3 questions. And sometimes it was magic in our last retreat. So you're given time to work on this yourself, and you're like, what's working? What's not working? What could work? And by just sharing in a small, intimate group of business owners who are supporting each other, it was amazing to see how many things that people were like, hold on, I did that too and it worked, but I didn't even think about it to put on my list. Oh, wow, that's such a good idea. I'm going to take that and put that into something that could work for my business. And so not only are you leveraging your own experiences, but you're able to, in a group environment, leverage the experiences of others that are business owners just like yourself. So I do just want to say a few things about the power of this simple framework, because again, I said it at the top of this segment, is that this is an incredibly simple framework. But what makes this different from other planning methods is its simplicity and balance. You're not just focusing on problems. You're not just dreaming about possibilities and making an endless wish list with no action plan. You're taking a realistic inventory of where you are right now, the good, the challenges, and the potential. And when you commit to this kind of honest reality check, you stop wasting time on strategies that are not serving you. You start maximizing what is already working while strategically experimenting with new approaches. So now you've done a reality check, right? You've done this insight feedback loop. You know what's working. You know what's not working. You know what could work. Now comes the part that separates successful business owners from everyone else: the willingness to reset based on what you've learned. Let's talk about what reset really means. Now, I have an entire episode about reset. It's episode 278, The Magical Power of a Reset, where I dive into this concept. And here's the truth: a reset is so powerful that I do have an entire episode on it. But I knew that talking about a reset in this context of doing a mid-year check-in was absolutely necessary. So if you haven't listened to that episode, put it on your listen list to go listen to episode 278. But I do want to just give you a brief, definition of how I define a reset. A reset is simply when you decide you want to stop or start doing something again and get right back on track. That's it. It's a choice. And it's a choice that you can do anytime. That is like literally the beautiful part of this. You can choose a reset at any time. You can realize that you need a reset this morning. You don't need to wait till the first of the year, the first of the month, Monday, or any given day of the week. Anytime you decide you're going to do a reset and restart. I want to just explain to you that you do not have to wait for a reset. You could be hearing my voice right now and say, oh my gosh, here's my sign to do a mid-year reset right here and right now. I want to give you an example of just how powerful this is. Let's think about this. Okay, so I literally had an afternoon ice cream this afternoon, and I had already written a script, but this is a great example. So, all right, so you could have ice cream for breakfast and then recommit to your health goals and have a salad for lunch, getting right back on track. Now, I want you to think about this because that's the power of a reset. Because what does this look like if you do not choose a reset? If you're not choosing a reset without understanding that, you may tell yourself, well, today went to shit, so I'm just going to double down and get a double cheeseburger. I'm going to supersize the fry, and I'm going to get a Coke for lunch. And then who knows what you tell yourself for dinner. And so instead of just giving yourself that guilt-free permission to reset after ice cream for breakfast, you may go a whole day. And then maybe it's a Wednesday and you're like, well, let's just see how it works. I'm going to restart on a Monday. And then Monday comes and goes. So the same principle applies to your business goals. Maybe you haven't looked at your goals since February. Maybe you've been completely off track. So what? Today, you can reset. Right now, in this moment, choose to reset. When you have to do a reset, it doesn't mean you failed. It's part of the journey. I want to say that again. When you have to do a reset, it doesn't mean you failed. It's part of the journey. Your goals are like a GPS system. Think about this. When you're driving and taking a wrong turn, your GPS doesn't shame you or tell you to just keep driving the wrong direction. It simply recalculates. It says, based on where you are now, here's the best path forward. Isn't that incredible? It just simply recalculates based on where you're at. And that is exactly what we're doing with this mid-year reset. We're not judging where we've been or what didn't happen. We're looking at where we are right now and recalculating the best path to get you to where you need to go by December 31st. I want to talk about this because I've been alluding to it. I've been talking about guilt-free, but I really want to hit this topic head on. I want to talk about the emotions that come up and why they're lying to you. Here's what I see happens. Business owners look at their goals, realize they're off track, and they immediately feel defeated. Or they have internal conversation and language like, well, I'm already behind. What's the point? Or they feel guilty and they're saying things to themselves like, I should have done this. I should have done that. Or they're rewriting history. They're rewriting the story. And oftentimes I come along and partner with my clients and I'm like, hold on, I am not, no. That is not what happened. And that may be their truth. Like that's truly what they believe. And I'll be like, let me tell you what I observed in the last 6 months. Let me tell you what I have seen you're dealing with and why you might be where you're at. And both are true. Like their story is true. My story is true. But my story is coming from an honest third-party perspective. And it's so interesting that time and time again, my clients edit out the parts that will actually make sense of where they're at because this shame spiral. Another feeling that often comes up is overwhelm. Like you look at your goals and you immediately think 6 months. Oh my gosh, when I wrote these goals, I had 12 months. 12 months felt like forever. 6 months, this can never happen. How will I ever catch up? You're probably going to have one or all of these feelings or thoughts or internal dialogue going on. But I need to be really clear with you here. I'm going to be straight up. I'm going to tell you exactly what I feel about these. Those emotions are based on a lie. And if you believe them and you dwell on them and you let them fester, you are not going to allow yourself to do the reset. The lie is that says that your January goals were set in stone and that they actually had to be that way is just not true. Like circumstances change. You get feedback about what's working and not working. And so because you may find yourself off track, it does not mean like you personally did something so wrong. I want you to consider there's probably a lot of reasons why you might feel off track. And addressing that and being clear about that is going to let you make better strategy. And when we let our emotions take over, it's like a fog and we're not able to actually think clearly. And that is what you need right now. That's what your business needs from you is to review and to reset and refocus. And to do that, we cannot let ourselves get consumed by the emotions and the internal dialogue that might be getting in the way of that. What if I told you that every successful business owner adjusts their goals? The ability to reset based on reality is actually a superpower and not a weakness. And I don't think that actually is talked about enough. I think that it's assumed by so many that you're just supposed to like have this magic 8-ball. You can see into the future. You create your goals and you're like, I know exactly how this is going to play out in the next year. And the reality is none of us know exactly how anything is going to play out. And so truly, if you want to be successful, you got to understand that the win is in the pivot. The win is in the review and refocus and recalibrate based on new information and new data. And I want to talk about, based on your insight feedback loop that you've done, that there are some common adjustments that you may be making to your goals based on the 3 questions in the insight feedback loop. And here are some common adjustments that you may be making to your goals. You may adjust your timeline. Maybe that launch needs to move from Q3 to Q4 because you discovered a better strategy that needs more development, more time, like more setup. Maybe your team doesn't have the bandwidth to get it pushed out in Q3. And so Q4, to do it right, makes more sense with your current situation. Perhaps you need to narrow your focus. So at the beginning of the year, did you set 10 goals? Did you set 15? Did you realize that wow, you were not focused, that you had so many goals that you were trying to achieve, and that now you realize that going deep on 3 goals will get you far better results than going shallow and missing the mark on 10? How about shifting your strategy? So when I talk about what could work, what if in January, one of your goals was really overcomplicated? Maybe it was a marketing strategy that was too complicated, and you realize that something else is working, like strategic referral partners. And when you do this feedback loop around your marketing, you're like, yeah, my strategic partners, they're really sending me most of the business. Well, if that's working, what would it look like if you doubled down on that instead of trying a brand new, not knowing what the ROI is, marketing plan or strategy? So shifting your strategy based on results is really common. It's going to be common. How about increasing your goals? Yes, like that may be one of the outcomes of your insight feedback loop, is that you discover that you underestimated what was possible. If something is working better than expected, double down on it. Go further with it. Make it a bigger goal. And lastly is you may realize that you want different goals and you're going to let some of them go. Maybe that goal that made sense in January, but your business has evolved, and letting it go isn't quitting. It's making room for what matters most to you right now, what could be more effective, more impactful. So letting go is making space for something that's even better. I want to kind of dive into, I'm talking about letting go of goals, but how do you actually know if you need to adjust your goals, let them go and abandon them, or amplify them? I want you to ask yourself these questions. First, is the goal still aligned with where your business is heading? 2, is the challenge that you're having with your goal a timing issue or a fundamental mismatch? 3, what would happen if you didn't achieve the goal? Like if you just didn't achieve it or you didn't do it, what negative impact would it have on the business? And if the answer is like, meh, not much, like it's not really going to change anything, that is a telltale sign just to let it go. Preserve your energy, your time, your attention, your money for a different goal. Is there evidence that with adjustments that this could work? So I talked a lot about you might have something fall in, it doesn't work, and you may move it into it could work. But is there actual evidence that there's a specific resource that if you had or gave to it, whether that was a skill set or hiring somebody or money or more time, that if there was a missing resource that you applied to that, could you truly make it work? And the last question is, am I holding on to this because of ego or because it actually really serves your business? Sometimes we get into this loop or trap of this lure of making goals that are either ego-driven or they're because we have shoulds around them. And I really want you to realign your goals mid-year and ask yourself, does this goal truly serve my business? So, how do you actually reset your goals? We're going to break it down. Number 1, release the guilt. Feeling guilty about where you haven't been or what didn't get done, you are going to release the guilt because it clouds your judgment and prevents clear thinking that you need to make strategic decisions. You need a clear mind to reset effectively. 2, evaluate with fresh eyes. So you're going to look at each goal through the lens of your current reality, not your January optimism, not what you think it should look like. Fresh, clear eyes with honest context as to where you're at right now. Then 3, you're going to make strategic adjustments. Make changes based on data, not emotion. Number 4, energy alignment. Ensure your adjusted goals excite you and they do not exhaust you. And the energy alignment is also going back to like reality check of like, where are you at right now? Like if you're leading these or you're leading the team that is achieving these goals, I think it's really important to do an energy alignment check of like, where are you at right now? What is your current capacity to push and move things forward? And you might be like, I'm ready to run. And you may say, oh my gosh, things have changed. There's something going on. I really want to align these goals with the context of like what's happening in my life right now. And I'm not saying play small and I'm not saying make excuses, but ignoring who you are and where your energy's at is a mistake. It's going to end up in a lot of disappointment. So I would rather just be honest and then align our goals in that way. And then number 5 is tell someone. So share your goals for accountability with somebody. It could be your significant other. It could be a business friend. It could be me. You could follow me on Instagram, DM me, let me know what your goals are and how you're finishing the year out. I would love to hear it. But I do know that if we share our goals with others and create that external accountability, that we not only can have someone that is like cheering us on, but we have someone that we feel accountable to, not just ourselves. So the freedom that comes from resetting, man, when you give yourself permission to reset, something really magical happens. And I've said that over and over again. It lifts the pressure. The overwhelm dissipates. Suddenly, you're not trying to force outdated goals to work. You're working with your current reality to create achievable and exciting outcomes. Remember, successful business owners aren't the ones who stick to outdated goals. They're the ones who adapt, reset, and finish strong based on what their business actually needs. You now understand why mid-year check-ins aren't optional. They're essential for any business owner who wants to finish the year strong. You have the insights feedback loop to honestly assess what's working, what's not, and what could work in your business. And you know that resetting your goals isn't failure. It's the strategic move that helps you finish the year strong. But here's the thing. None of this matters if you don't actually do it. The difference between business owners who end the year celebrating and those who end wondering where the time went, it's action. You don't need to wait for the right moment. You don't need everything figured out. You just need to start. Pull out those goals, run them through the insights feedback loop, and give yourself permission to reset and create a plan for the next 6 months. Because 6 months from now, you want to be looking back with pride at what you've accomplished, not regret for what you didn't even try. Remember, the most successful business owners aren't the ones with perfect plans. They're the ones who pause, assess, and adjust. And that's exactly what you're equipped to do with now. I have loved having you listen to this episode of the Small Business Straight Talk podcast, but I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So here is your Take Action Challenge. Block out 1 hour this week to do your mid-year check-in. Put it on the calendar right now. Use the insights feedback loop on just one area of your business to start. because momentum begins with a single step. And your future self on December 31st, 2025, will be thanking you for taking that step now. If you're ready to stop doing this alone and want the accountability and support to actually achieve your goals, I am inviting you to join the interest list for my VIP business planning event this November. This is the same transformational event that has my current attendees meeting me in Bend, Oregon for this mid-year reset. And I want you to be the first to know when all the details come out about this event to business plan in a weekend, everything for 2026. So get on the interest list by heading on over to amberdelagarza.com/business planning. Again, that's amberdelagarza.com/business planning. If you're interested, just drop your name and email and you will be the first with details to register and get a seat at this event. And if you are new here, I just want to say welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it far and wide. I know that you know other business owners who you think would find it valuable, and I would appreciate it so much if you would share this episode with them. So that's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.